Right, so this is the lesson that I'm going to discuss for this meeting, which is Taoism. This is another religion originated from China that has a huge influence in other parts of the world. Okay, lesson objectives. At the end of the lesson, the students will be able to discuss that Tao is the origin of all beings whose essence is nothing. Give examples of acts showing love and respect for nature and the environment, and give a historical background of Taoism and its proponents. Right, background of Taoism. Taoism is also known as the method of Huang and Lao. Huang literally means the yellow emperor, while Lao refers to the Chinese old sage or Lao Zhu. Huang is identified in Chinese history as one of the earliest rulers and foundational figures in Chinese civilization. So the origin of Taoism is not uh, clearly indicated in terms of the exact time when this religion is established. So the same with Confucianism. Taoism contains a lot of philosophies, words of wisdom, how are going to live their life, going to treat other people, the basic teachings. One of the earliest materials that contain the teachings of Lao Shu is the Tao Te Ching. This text mainly contains Lao Shu's ideas as compiled by his followers. So the ones who compiled the teachings of Lao She about the Tao teaching were his followers. So he told his disciples to write down what he was teaching them so that yung ideas niya uh, will be considered and will be preserved. So that it will be passed down from generations to generation. The text does not only contain straightforward teachings on Taoism, but also reactions to and acute criticisms of Confucian doctrine. So, itong Taoism, it's not just about the teaching of this religion, but it also contains yung ano niya, disagreements and oppositions towards the doctrines of Confucianism. So, this particular religion also challenges the basic beliefs about Confucianism. The attacks against Confucian doctrines are found not only in the Tao Te Ching but also in the Zhuangzi, which was written by a thinker of the same name, Zhuangzi, between 369 and 285 BCE. So the same thing with Confucianism. There are a lot of texts or scriptures in that religion that are authored by the followers of Confucius. The same with Taoism. There are teachings that were also authored by the followers. Meron silang kanyang interpretations then, meron silang ideas, opinions about the original teachings of this religion. The language of both texts is cryptic, mystical, and ambiguous to be taken literally so that sensible context may be drawn from it. In this sense, when the texts talk about the Tao, there is no word to describe it. So, because it's really hard to decipher, it's difficult to understand the meaning of the text. That's why itong Tao, much better that it won't be talked about it's it shouldn't be talked about anymore. Parang it's ironic kasi that's one of the uh, basic concept ng Taoism, pero it's because it's really hard to understand. Parang they should not talk about it instead. It's because they cannot give um, what's the real meaning, real definition of what is Tao. The Tao Te Ching points to the Tao as natural, spontaneous, and beyond the senses. This means that to speak about the Tao is not to speak about it at all, since human senses cannot totally or even minutely grasp it. As what I've mentioned earlier, it's hard to understand what's the meaning of Tao. So that's why people avoided to talk about it anymore. Kasi they cannot give what's the exact meaning of what is Tao, what it is all about. So beyond senses siya, it's because we cannot fully understand, we cannot fully grasp using our basic senses. Okay, major sources of Taoist teachings. The teachings of Taoism are also grounded on other canons, some of these predating the Tao Te Ching. The beginnings of Taoist beliefs and practices such as feng shui can be found in the book I Ching, the Book of Changes, which was written around the time of the Zhao dynasty, 1046 to 256 BCE. So, one of the most commonly known part of Taoism culture is yung feng shui, yung may bagwa. If you already watched the film, yung Feng Shui ni Chris Aquino, you will understand what's the purpose of this object or concept sa Taoism. So, one of the most prominent feature in Taoism is yung Feng Shui. Another religious text is a Taiping Ching, or Taiping Jing, or simply the scripture of the ultimate equilibrium, which appeared around the 2nd century CE. So itong I Ching, it contains about the changes. It has a lot of meaning. It has different meanings. Meaning um it may mean exchange, it may mean transition, parang may changes. This one. The I Ching contains teachings about change. The title contains different meanings. It could mean easy, exchange, or simple. The book focuses on these meanings. Okay, the book also uses some easy to remember symbols and signs, as well as views concerning change as the most fundamental description of the world. The I Ching uses the symbol of a lizard to describe the nature of change, as a lizard changes its color to adapt itself to the environment in order to survive. So this particular belief in Taoism is that people should expect and accept changes, meaning time will come that things will change. So, para sa kanila, we should go with the flow of these changes. Kaya, for Taoism, they emphasize this kind of belief kasi they want their followers or adherents to be adaptive, to go with the flow that changes, just like a river. Yun yung ano nila, uh, paniniwala nila. Kasi it's very important for them, it's very important to be adaptive, go with the flow, you know how to adjust, kasi need siya for survival. The I Ching is one of the 5 classics of Confucianism. Today, all of the versions of the I Ching include the interpretations of Confucius. Confucius revered the teachings of the I Ching to the extent that he would love to spend much of his time studying change. So, Confucianism, meron siyang influence dito sa Taoism. Uh, my belief si Confucius or yung Confucianism itself that influence or inabsorb ng Taoism, and they made it as their own. Although when you study the origin, it's rooted from Confucius. The I Ching mentions two basic components called yin and yang. A divided horizontal line represents the yin, while an undivided horizontal line depicts the yang. But what distinguishes one from the other is their shade. So ito very prominent in Taoism, yung yin and yang. I know you're already familiar with this symbolism. This is the most one of the most prominent symbolisms in Taoism. Yang represents the negative or itong black color. Ito naman yin, it represents the positive, itong color white. Ito, the yin and yang. The yin-yang dualism also explains various changes that occur in the world. For example, the yang is commonly associated with people with a sunny, warm, strong, or active personality. The yang is usually associated with a shady, cold, weak, or passive personality. So, if you're going to understand itong yin and yang, it's all about balance. There should be balance. Merong good and evil, merong negative, merong positive. So, if uh, everything should be in balance according to this specific concept in Taoism. Such explanations of the changes in the world are represented by what is called the eight trigrams: heaven, earth, mountain, lake, thunder, wind, fire, and water. Each symbol is explained thoroughly in the I Ching. Okay, the I Ching shows that every situation in life has its root cause. To know the root cause of this situation makes a lot of difference in approaching and dealing with the situation one is in. So in I Ching, also emphasizes that there's cause in every occurrences or in every phenomenon. In everything that is happening in the world, meron siyang root cause according to this uh, specific belief. And in order to address such problems, we need to go back to the what's the cause of this specific phenomenon or problem. So, para sa kanila, do not deal with the symptoms. You need to deal with the roots. So we have Tao Te Ching. While the I Ching explains the reality of change and how to deal with it, the Tao Te Ching looks at and examines what constitutes change and whether there is something beneath everything that changes. The Taoist school calls it Tao. The Tao is considered the ground or foundation of everything that there is, including change. So for this specific concept in Taoism, the foundation of this belief is the Tao. And it includes not just the changes as what the I Ching explained or emphasized. Para sa kanila, by understanding itong Tao Te Ching, it also explains ano yung ibig sabihin ng changes. What are the underlying reasons why changes occur? So, what are the things behind those changes? So, mas deeper siya, mas complex ang ginadeal sa Tao Te Ching. Taoists renounce social expectations. Instead, they emphasize that the best way to deal with life is to go freely with the natural course of events and things. So, itong Taoist, uh, hindi naman sila passive. It doesn't mean that they're passive with what's happening in the world, but they are more what do you call it? They are more flexible when it comes to adjusting to the situations, meaning they will accept things as they are and then they just go with the flow. They will still live their life. Ganun yung para sa kanila. It doesn't mean that they are passive, but it means that they want to adapt with the changes because they need it for survival. And para sa kanila, that things that are happening are natural course of events. The Tao is simple and undefined. The way of the Tao is the way of the unspeakable. To speak of the Tao is not to speak of it at all. This simply means silence, but this is only one way of viewing the Tao. Kasi nga, it's unspeakable. It's because of the concept change. The concept of change sa ganito religion. Meaning, things will change as they are. So meaning, the things in the past, there's a possibility na hindi na sila pwede gamitin sa future or sa current event kasi nag-iba na ang panahon para sa kanila. Human suffering and constant discord within societies can be attributed to the conscious disregard and neglect of the Tao. People keep building defenses, mechanisms, and artifices to survive. However, the way by which these are created is contrary to the flow of the Tao, of what is natural. So itong for Taoist, human sufferings are being incapable to adjust with the changes. Meaning, in their religion, that kind of action or kind of behavior, it's a form of neglect sa Tao, which is yung nag-emphasize siya about change. So, human suffering, it's because they cannot adapt the changes, they cannot adapt the situations, mahirap para sa kanila to deal with the current situation, they are not able to go with the flow, so they want to counter, they want to oppose, they want to disagree with what's happening. That's why merong human suffering. Taoism may be seen as more of a principle or philosophical viewpoint in an intellectual exercise rather than a religion. So, this concept is common in Chinese religions, like sa Confucianism, mas more of sila sa they're more particular with philosophies and principles compared with religion. Although they have religious practices, they have religious rituals and ceremonies, but they're not really prominent on that specific areas. Okay, however, this does not mean that Taoism has no religious features. The Tao, when viewed in a religious point of view, reveals insightful ideas about what is beyond and provides guidelines on human conduct. So, uh, using the lens of religion, when we view Tao, we have the idea that meron siyang what beyond pa sa Tao itself. The teachings that the Tao emphasizes, meron pa siyang uh, more complex na implications, which is yun yung pinopoint out ng religious point of view sa Taoism. And we have the Zhuangzi book of Zhuangzi. Zhuangzi is regarded as one of the champions of Taoism. His insights were an expansion of Laozi's view of the Tao in Tao teaching. Just like Laozi, Zhuangzi believes that nature is above culture and that the individual is above society. Right? So, but if you will compare him to Lao Tzu, Zhuangzi is more deeply concerned with the importance of self-preservation. Okay, as what I have mentioned earlier, nagkakaroon ng iba't ibang interpretations kasi meron sila may mga followers that they have their own opinions, they have their own point of view, depending on which lens nung tinitingnan nila yung religion. So, for Zhuangzi, uh, he's more concerned of about ourselves, how we're going to cultivate or nurture ourselves. For Lao Tzu, people suffer and are in discord because they establish norms which they think are proper and effective according to their standard and understanding. So, according to Lao Tzu, people suffer, it's because they have, ano ba, it's like they act based on their volition, based on their will, which are contrary to the natural setup. So they have their own standard, they have their own understanding, which are fallible, meaning merong flaws. That's why, because they have flaws sa kanilang norms, sa kanilang standard, the way they think, yung culture nila, nagkakaroon ng suffering. He further explained that beyond the plurality of things and differences that characterize things, events, and people was a single substance that unified all of this, which is yung Tao. So, according to Lao Tzu, sa kanyang teaching, um, diba, yung yin and yang, it refers to dualism, meaning may balance. May negative, may positive, may evil, may good, or any opposite concepts. So there's centrality on that that belief. So yung the very thing that unifies these opposite or ito mga yung polar end nito is yung Tao. Tai Ting Ching, or the scripture of the ultimate equilibrium. The Tai Ting Ching is the earliest religious Taoist scripture. The scripture originally had 170 scrolls, but only 57 survived. A man named Kanshi wrote the scripture during the Han Dynasty. Similar to the I Ching, the Tai Ting Ching contains beliefs concerning cosmic energies and explains the correspondence between human affairs and natural phenomena. These energies, according to the scripture, are the original energies known as the ultimate yang, the ultimate yin, and the harmonious neuter. So remember, there's in yin and yang concept, there's dualism. But there's another concept, kung parang the third one, which is the one that will neutralize the opposites. Kaya tawag sa kanya is ultimate equilibrium kasi siya yung mag-equal ng two opposite sides. So tawag din sa kanya is harmonious neuter kasi siya yung nag-neutralize, siya yung nag-balance between these opposite concepts. If one takes a closer look, the three original series do not undermine the notion of the yin-yang duality. Instead, the former affirms the reality of the latter, such that the third energy or harmonious neuter is a product of the yin and yang interaction. So, if these two opposite concepts, pag may interaction or kapag you're going to mix this one, yung result niya is yung harmonious neuter or yung third energy. Pag may balance between these two opposites. So if you can also see, it's sa symbol, sa white shade, meron siyang dot na color black. The same thing with the dark shade, the black shade. Meron siyang dot na color white. Kasi they believe that even though mas dominant yung positive, there's something dyan sa characteristic na may negative siya. They need it in order to balance, in order to adapt if you're going to mix these two concepts, tong negative at saka positive. Inside the negative, merong positive. Inside the negative, may positive. And they need that in order to be able to balance kapag if we're going to mix these concepts. And Taoism and nature. The Tao is the great origin of the cosmos and the way of the cosmos. It generates, and will continue to generate everything. It is not a creator. Instead, it is a principle that is constantly manifested in everything it generates. It is conceptually distant and is difficult to grasp, yet is readily accessible through all phenomena in the world. Para sa Taoism, uh, Tao is the origin of cosmos, meaning all things are created. Parang ganun yung uh, thinking nila. And it will create from eternity to eternity. Ganun yung belief nila. And basic teachings of Taoism. Tao is the way, the natural flow of things where the negative is always counterbalanced with the positive and vice versa. Individuals who worry find themselves in miserable situation. Instead, they should only let go and flow. Without their efforts, nature will balance itself. So for Taoism, being able to identify positive and negative, being able to identify these concepts is really important in order to counterbalance. Para they should know how to adjust in every situation. So, but for them, people should not worry. It's because they just only need to go with the flow. Kung ano yung nangyayari, you just have to accept it as it is. So, you don't need to make further efforts kasi yung nature itself will balance sa mga uh, will balance the events. So, what you're going to do is that you just have to understand, you just have to adapt, you just have to adjust. You just need to be flexible. You just have to be understanding of what is happening so that you will be able to know what are going to do. The Tao is impersonal. It has no rules and plans. It only acts naturally and spontaneously. It is the nature to a certain extent. So it's different from other teachings just like Buddhism, Hinduism, na ano siya, na parang it's part of yourself na uh, you need to perform meditation in order to be one with that concept. Sa tao, iba siya. It will just act naturally. So, part siya ng nature. So, everything that is happening, it's, ano siya, it's all because of tao para sa kanila. So, that's why people should not worry. Kasi yung tao mismo, siya yung the origin of things, but it will just balance itself. Meaning, kung may problema, the Tao itself will give the solution. So, rasan lang, no need to worry. You just have to be adaptive. You just have to be flexible. Ganun lang. And we have the concept of Wu Wei. Central to Taoism is a concept of Wu Wei. It is a lifestyle that encourages a person to practice contemplation and meditation. Though the practice of contemplation and meditation is different from other religions na you need to be you call that transcendental meditation, like you'll experience spiritual journey na you'll be one with the gods or gods kung sino man yung pinapaniwalaan yung na god or deity. Ito sa Taoism, it's different. Wu Wei means saying things with a sense of detachment, allowing events to flow without aggression or opposition. So, ito sa Wu Wei, it emphasizes that we need to be able to separate ourselves from worrying the things around us. So, meaning we should go with the flow. We don't need to be aggressive. We need to be we don't need to oppose. So, in-emphasize sa teaching ng Wu Wei is that uh, hindi ka dapat maging ano lang like do not insist what you want. It's because things are happening because there's a reason, and it will be solved naturally. It will be addressed naturally. So no need to oppose, no need to be aggressive para uh, sa Wu Wei. Wu Wei avoids aggression that defends one's senses and thus hinders one from knowing the Tao. So, itong Wu Wei, when you are mad, when you're aggressive, when it comes to the happenings around us, so it will hinder you from understanding what is Tao. So meaning it will block your cognition in order to determine what is Tao, what Tao really is. Wu Wei is also related to the absence of desire and passion. Any action that is informed by the mind is said to be unnatural and calculating. So remember that in Wu Wei, it also emphasizes that we need to detach ourselves uh, um, from the things na naghihinder sa atin when it comes to understanding the nature, the natural events. So for Owe also, it also emphasizes that we need to abstain ourselves from selfish desires, from material things, earthly passions, ganun siya. Okay, the doctrine of Wu Wei teaches that there is nothing permanent in this world. So para sa doctrine na ito, itong Wu Wei, everything has an end. Meaning everything will come to an end. So nothing will stay, nothing is permanent. Ganun yung belief nila. Wu Wei emphasizes the value of nonviolence, not acting aggressively and not stealing. However, non-resistance or nonviolence is not based on cowardice or weakness. So even though itong Wu Wei, it emphasizes that we don't need to be aggressive, we don't need to be violent, we don't need to do things that can harm other people. Even though um, there are things that can implore us to do such negative things or negative actions. But teaching that we need to value the nonviolence, not acting aggressively, just be calm. Ganun na mga positive concepts or virtues are not sign of weakness or cowardice. Kasi para sa kanila, as what we need to go back to the teaching sa basic teaching ng Taoism, we just uh, go with the flow. You need to be opposed because para sa kanya, if you're going to oppose, if you're going to disagree, even though na nature will address the problems themselves, so magkakaroon ng suffering yung tao. Law of reversion and following nature. Taoism teaches the importance of taking hold of oneself and of being a responsible human being. People's experiences provide them with adequate knowledge to reflect on how to live meaningful lives and on the reality of life. So, itong Taoism, it also uh, talks about the accountability and responsibility of the person over his own life. So, meaning we are responsible of our own life. What will happen to us is that tayo yung accountable, tayo yung responsible. So, para sa Taoism, we need to be adequate. We need to equip ourselves with knowledge, with wisdom on how to live our lives. The yin yang and the five elements. Taoism also recognizes the relation and interplay of opposites. This is best sa This is best in its doctrine of the yin yang and the five elements associated with it. In Chinese cosmology, the five elements or wuxing pertains to different forces, agents, phases, and stages. These elements are wood, fire, earth, metal, and water. This is evident in sa Chinese zodiac. Merong, meron tayong year of the rat, year of the rooster, year of the snake, year of the ram or year of the sheep. So yun sa 12 zodiac. So It's not just that rat, ram, horse, pil ba ang horse? I'm not really sure. Kalimut na ko sa ano, sa 12 zodiac. Sa dragon, meron din tinatawag na uh, wood rat, fire rat, or earth rat. Depende sa phases at sa stages. So ito yung five elements. We have wood, earth, water, fire, metal, and each element has significant meanings. Meron siyang significant attributes or characteristics. So for wood, yung season niya is spring. Direction is, yung color niya is green. Environment, windy. Yung taste, sour. Emotion, anger. Sense organ, eye. Bodily tissue, tendons. It's not just about philosophy, religion, or teaching. It's all about physiological po siya. Meaning, para sa kanila, it also manifests in the physical nature, sa physical body natin. Taoist practices. There are Taoist temples for adherents to observe the religious practices. Taoists integrate in their religious rituals and practice some elements of Chinese folk traditions and other popular rituals. Their practices represent an assimilation of Confucian practices that are closely associated to ancestor worship, such as offering incense and burning paper money. So, as what I've mentioned earlier, itong Taoism, meron siyang influence from Confucianism. When it comes to ancestor worship, they offer offerings, they perform rituals and ceremonies. Meron din silang aspect sa ganitong ano nila, sa belief nila, sa religious aspect. Okay, women and Taoism. There is scant literature as to how women are regarded in Taoism. Like the Confucian school, Taoism advertently did not say something serious about women. Even Zhuangzi did not mention anything related to women. The sparse records of the classical period have very little to say about women adherents of Taoism. So, sa Taoism, they're not very particular with women. They're not even mentioned about women. Although mayroong mga adherents about women, ito yung mga guy, what do you call that? Yung laws nila about women usually came from their other parts sa kanilang culture or from other influence. Pero sa Taoism, wala talaga siyang uh, mention about women. So, it's the although in Confucianism, meron silang view about women that they have special roles sa society. They also acknowledge the roles of women kasi especially in the family, um, in the household chores, um, women are bound to serve with their family, the husbands, sa mga in-laws nila. So, ganun yung view ng women. And that's the end of our discussion. Okay. Do you have questions, clarifications about our discussion?
None so far, sir.
Wala. Okay, if you don't have questions anymore, I think it's a wrap. That's the end of our discussion. By the way, remind ko kayo again sa PT ninyo. Isa pa lang na although hindi pa deadline, wala pa yung deadline, but at least ma-remind mo sa inyong PT. Si Leslie pa lang nag-submit. By the way, message nyo lang sa akin na I did not post something sa Schoology, just like your assessment activity sa other subjects na i-post nyo doon. Message nyo na lang sa akin sa Schoology. Okay? I think that's the end of our discussion. By the way, posted na sa YouTube, in YouTube ang inyong, sa tawagan ay, ang discussions. I will post the link na lang sa Schoology. lahat ng subjects. I'm going to end the the conference. Thank you for joining our meeting for today. See you next meeting. Bye.